and expressions. Alright, so the first part of today is if you have some pictures all in a row, you are trying to describe to me how you would draw the next picture. Okay? So let's just start there. So for example, let's say I have this star here, and maybe in my next picture I have star here, and then maybe in my next picture. So how would I draw my fourth picture? With four stars, but how? In a diagonal. Okay, so in my diagonal, am I adding the star to the bottom right corner, upper left corner? Okay, so part of what I need you to do today, part of what I want you to realize is that in Algebra 2, the details of what you're doing matter. That's why we're kind of introducing it this way. So there's a big difference between if I draw the next picture, adding my star in the bottom right corner, or if I would have added my star in the upper left corner, right? So if you want your picture to match, it has, or follow the pattern, it has to be very detailed, so when you describe it. All right, let's try another one. Let's say, let's do this one. So there's my first picture, picture number 1. And let's go with, this is picture number 2. And then let's go with picture number 3. Let's do this one. So what's the fourth picture look like?
You would have,
go ahead, please.
so you would have to add another dot onto the top and then onto the side, and then you put another 2 dots in between on an angle.
So if you had to put that into words, how would you?
Oh, just add another row. I'm gonna put it that way. You add another.
Add a row to where?
On the top.
Okay, so you could say you're adding a row on the diagonal. Is that what you're saying? What else could you do? What else could you explain it as doing? Okay, we could add a dot to each row. How do I know to add an additional dot to the top? That's a row, okay. Anybody else have another way to say it?
Make it square. No.
Not quite a square, no. What if I added one additional, wait, how do I say it? What if I put the row here? What if I said I wanted to add a row of one more dot to the left of my picture? Does that do the same thing? So, I mean, there is a variety of different ways you can describe it today, okay? Alright, so, that being said, the next thing I want to talk about is, well, what does this really matter? So, in the first one, remember that this is always going to be figure number 1, okay? And then 2, and 3, and 4, and so on. We are going to go ahead and put these into a table, okay? So, in a table, on the left-hand side is always going to be your figure number. On the right-hand side is what it is, or the number of dots, or what's in the picture that you're counting, okay? So, for example, in this one, number of dots. And the idea behind putting it into a table is that eventually we'll be able to write an expression. So, for example, in figure number 1, I have 1 dot. In figure number 2, I have 3 dots. In figure number 3, I have 6 dots. In figure number 4, I would have had, helps if I add, right? 10 dots, thank you. Right? So, when we look at this, we're going to take this table and we're going to make an expression from it. Do you guys remember doing those back in Algebra 1? A little bit? Okay. Alright, so that's the whole idea today. Yeah, Annika, did you have a question? Yeah, you're adding 4. You're adding this one. It goes 1, 2, 3. This is the original picture. And we discussed putting it as 1, 2, 3, 4 this way, or adding a fourth one this way, right?
Yep.
The total of 10. Okay, so here's how the process works. Ooh, let's start a new page. Let me work from a table first. So let's say we 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. Yeah, I want you to make the table. We're going to write an expression, and we're going to talk about the steps to write this expression. Okay, and maybe on this side we have, let's go 8, 10, 12, and 14. All right. So to write our expression, step number 1 is you are going to subtract the right-hand column. And you always subtract the second one from the first one. Back in the day, we called these loops.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 10 minus 8 equals 2, right? 12 minus 10 equals 2. 14 minus 12 equals 2. If these were all the same, this was our coefficient on the variable. If they're the same. Does anybody remember what we had to do if they weren't the same? You had to do it again. Exactly. Very good. All right. So this is our coefficient on our variable. So, for example, in this one, this would be 2x. But then we had to decide what we needed to add on for this to start. And we did it 2 ways. One way, we said we could take one of these numbers and plug it in. Right? So if I plug 3 into here, I get 6. How many more do I have to add on in order to get 12? 6, right? Try it with this one. If I put 2 in here, 2 times 2 is 4 plus 6. That was one way we talked about it. The other way we said is we could go back 1 to where it was 0. If we went backward 1, we also got 6. So we always added what was across from 0. Okay, so we talked about it both ways. Do you guys remember that too?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So let's try and put one all together. So here's my official example number 1. We're going to go through everything your directions are going to ask you to do today. Okay? And it's going to say, make a table. Write an expression. And describe the next picture. All right. So, let's do... What are easy to draw? Stars? Are stars easy to draw? Let's do that. So, here's my first picture. Here is picture number 2. Picture number 3. Oops, I didn't quite squeeze in there. Okay. So, picture number 4. What would we actually be doing? Yeah, we're adding a star to each end, right? Top and the bottom. Okay. So that would be part of our answer is for picture 4. Add 1 star to the top and 1 star to the bottom. Alright. Now we're going to make a table. So here's my table. Remember the first column is the picture number. So picture number 1, we have 3 stars. Right? Picture number 2, then, we have 5 stars. Picture number 3, 7. So we're going to write an expression using this. So first we're going to do our loops. Make sure they match. 5 minus 3 is 2. 7 minus 5 is 2. Those match. So where does that go in my expression? Yeah, so 2x. Now we gotta decide how many we need to add to this. So we can either go backward one more to where it's 0, or we can plug a number in. Which way do you guys like better? Because that's the way I'll do it every time. Go backward, plug the number in, a little bit of both? Okay, we'll do it both ways. Alright, so if we plug the number in, if I plug 1 in here, I get 2, but I need it to equal 3, so I'm adding 1. If I go back 1 to 2 less than the 3, I get a 1 across from the 0, right? Either way. So this is our expression. Now, what do we need that expression for? What if I wanted to know how many stars are in the 10th picture? What would I do? Yeah, perfect. You'd put 10 in for x. Seem pretty easy? Doing okay? All right, let's do one more like this. Example number 2. Example 2. All right, same 3 things I'm going to ask you to do. And here are our pictures. I'm going to try and draw this to the best of my capability. That's a block of 9, okay? And in this one, let me try drawing that a little bit better. One more time. There we go. All right. So what's one way we could describe how to draw the 4th picture? How would you want to describe it, Lucas?
You subtract 1 block from the farthest right side.
Okay, that makes sense. So subtract 1 block from the leftmost side. Is that what you said? Oh, rightmost side? Try that again. All right. So now let's put it into a table. In picture number 1, we have how many blocks? 9. Good. Picture number 2. And picture number 3. And if we had a picture number 4, that would be 6, right? So 8 minus 9, now be careful. What do we get? Negative 1. Good. 7 minus 8. Why am I using so sloppy? Negative 1. And 6 minus 7. Negative 1. What am I going to do with that beautiful negative 1? Good. Negative 1x. All right. So now if I go back 1 to where it's across from 0, what am I going to have? 10. So it's going to be plus 10 on the end. All right. Questions at all so far?
No.
Right.
When we're doing the box, you always want to add like the 4, because the last one we didn't add it before.
No, it really doesn't matter as long as, you're going to see actually in your homework, some of the tables, or they have at least 4 pictures in all of them. So because they already have 4 pictures, you're fine. If there's only 3, that's fine too. Okay? That's a good question, Manny. All right, so how about if I don't give you the picture and it just starts with the tables? Let's do example number 3. Let's go with 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's go with negative 3, negative 7, negative 11, negative 15. All right, I want you to write an expression. Write an expression. So first, of course, we have to figure out if there's a coefficient on a variable, right? So negative 7 minus a negative 3. Negative 4, good. And I like to write it out because you start to lose these negatives, right? Here, negative 11 minus a negative 7. Negative 4. And 15 minus a negative 11. Alright, minus negative 11 is negative 4. Excellent. So we know we have negative 4x, or n, or whatever variable you want to use. Plus. So we can plug in 1, we get negative 4, but we need it to be negative 3. So we're going to add how many? 1. If you choose to go back 1 more, we're actually adding 4 to it, so it also takes you to 1. Whichever way, you got to make sure it goes across from 0. So what would you have to do using this method if this was actually started with a 2 here? You got to go back twice. So you have to make sure you're paying attention to what's on the left also, okay? All right? Next one. Let's change it up just a little bit. What if? What if? I gave you a graph. So writing and expression from a graph. Alright, so maybe this graph, I'm just going to do a first quadrant one here. So 1, here's a dot, here's another dot. Alright. Of course, I can go one more and extend that. So now we don't have a bunch of pictures to look at, but we do have 4 dots to look at, right? So when we look at these, remember the x value is always going to come first in your table, and then the y value. So when we make a table to represent this, we have our x and we have our y. So in the first one, this point is at 1, and what is the y value for the first point we have here? 2, good. For this second point, our x value is 2, our y value is 4. Third point, our y value is, and the fourth point? 8. Awesome. Okay. So now we have to figure out what the expression is that represents these dots, or these points. So 4 minus 2 is 2. 6 minus 4 is 2. And 8 minus 6, 2. So we have 2x. Plus. Plus what?
2x plus 0.
Plus 0. How did you know that?
Going back.
Good.
0.
You can go back to 0, or again, you can plug something in. So if it's 0, do we have to include it? No. No, we can just write it as 2x. Okay? So you have a few that are like that. So we've done patterns from pictures, we've done patterns from a table, we've done patterns from a graph. Now let's do patterns from numbers. Talk about patterns from numbers. Alright, so for example, if I have the numbers 6, 12, 18, 24. And I want to know what's the next 3 numbers in this.
You'd have to write down the 1.
So if I wanted to know what the next 3 numbers are in our pattern here, how would I figure that out?
You do the loops just without the first part.
Alright, so you want to do the loops just underneath it, right here? Okay. So 12 minus 6,
6,
18 minus 12,
6,
24 minus 18.
6.
So what do you think I'm going to do to this 24?
Add 6.
Add 6, so this would be 30, and 36, and 42. Right? So in your work. It just wants you to identify the pattern. So what is the pattern here? What's happening? Adding 6. That's all I'm asking from you. Add 6. Okay? Can we do one harder?
No. Keep it this easy. This is easy.
Let's throw a harder one out there just for the fun of it. How about this pattern? Alright. So this is a tougher one. I want you to find the next 3. I'm just throwing it out there. So this pattern is not a typical adding the same thing every time. How do I know that? Well, if I subtract 2 minus 1, I only get 1. 3 minus 2, I get 1. 5 minus 3, I get 2. Well, that doesn't make sense. And then 8 minus 5, I get 3. Something's not right.
Got it.
What is it?
13, 21, and 34.
Good. 13, 21, and 34. How'd you get that?
You just add the previous numbers.
Yes. So check it out. And you can start to see it arriving here if we were doing it. You're adding the 2 previous. So 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 5 is 8. 5 plus 8 is 13. 8 plus 13 is 21. And 13 plus 21 is 34. As I said, it was a tougher one. I was just throwing it out there. All right. So because I have a feeling we're going to have a few questions as you start working through this. You're going to have questions of each other and as you're working. I want to get started on this right away. Okay? So I'm going to have you go ahead, open your book. You're doing 8 through 40 even. Okay? Make sure on the ones where you have to describe it in words that you're detailed. Because when I go to look at your homework, if I can write it differently than how you're telling me, I'm going to draw a different picture. Okay? Make sure I know exactly what you're thinking. All right?